The snow in Moscow is usually white, but this morning, on the prestigious streets where the elite live, it is stained with the red blood of a general. For months, we have been watching the front lines in Ukraine. We have been counting tanks, tracking drones, and analyzing maps of the Donbass. But while the world was looking at the trenches, the real war, the war that will decide the fate of Russia, has started not in Kiev, but in the heart of Moscow. A shot rang out in the capital. A high-ranking Russian general, a man with the highest security clearances, a man who knew where the skeletons were buried, was executed in broad daylight. This was not a random crime. This was a message, and he is not alone. In the last 48 hours, the Russian Federation has descended into a chaos that resembles a mafia movie more than a superpower. The president has fired his oldest friend. Police special forces are raiding the homes of Communist Party members in Siberia. And on the streets, former Wagner convicts are engaging in gunfights with law enforcement. Vladimir Putin is no longer fighting just against Ukraine. He is fighting against his own shadow. The system is eating itself. The vertical of power is collapsing into a bloody free-for-all. Today on MrWARLOG, we are connecting the dots of this bloody week. We are going inside the Kremlin's Night of the Long Knives. Who was the general? Why was Sergei Ivanov, the man who has been with Putin since the KGB days, thrown out? And why are the heroes of the special military operation now terrorizing the streets of Moscow? If you think you know what is happening in Russia, think again. The civil war hasn't been canceled, it has just moved indoors. Let's start with the body on the pavement. According to urgent reports from Charter 97 and the British Express, a deputy head of the GRU, Russia's military intelligence agency, has been shot in an assassination attempt in Moscow. The GRU is not just an army unit, they are the eyes and ears of the Kremlin abroad. They are the ones who organized the Skripal poisonings. They are the ones managing the sabotage operations in Europe. For a man of this rank to be targeted in the capital, one of two things must be true. Either foreign intelligence services have penetrated the deepest layers of Moscow's security, which is a catastrophe for Putin, or, and this is much more likely, this was an inside job. In the world of Russian intelligence, there is a fierce war between the FSB, Federal Security Service, and the GRU. They compete for budget, for influence, and for the Tsar's ear. When a war goes badly and the war in Ukraine is going badly, someone has to be blamed. Is the FSB cleaning house? Are they eliminating witnesses who could testify about the failures of the invasion? A bullet to the head is a very effective way to seal a leak. This assassination tells us that the security guarantees that the Russian elite enjoyed for 20 years are gone. No one is safe. If a general can be touched, anyone can be touched. To understand this assassination, we have to look at the bigger picture. In Moscow, they call it the War of the Towers. The Kremlin has many towers, and right now, they are firing at each other. For 2 years, the FSB, Federal Security Service, and the Army have been playing a deadly game of pass the blame. In 2022, the Army blamed the FSB for bad intelligence regarding Kiev. In 2023, the FSB blamed the Army for the failures in Kharkiv and Kherson. Now, in 2026, the blame game has turned into a survival game. Our sources indicate that the FSB has received a carte blanche from Putin to purge the military. Why? Because Putin needs the army to be afraid. He fears a military coup more than he fears a NATO tank. By allowing the secret police to assassinate or arrest high-ranking military officials, he keeps the men with the guns in check. But this strategy is eating the regime from the inside. When the intelligence services are busy hunting their own generals instead of foreign spies, the state becomes blind. But the bullet in the street was just the overture. The real earthquake happened inside the Kremlin walls. Vladimir Putin has signed a decree dismissing Sergei Ivanov. For those who don't follow the deep lore of the Kremlin, let me explain who Sergei Ivanov is. He is not just a bureaucrat. He is practically Putin's geopolitical twin. They served in the KGB together in Leningrad. They moved to Moscow together. Ivanov was the Minister of Defense. He was the Chief of Staff. At one point, he was considered the likely successor to Putin himself. Dismissing Ivanov is like cutting off your own right arm. The Moscow Times reports this dismissal as a routine rotation, but don't believe that for a second. In a time of war, you don't fire your most experienced, most loyal lieutenant unless you suspect him. Or unless you need a scapegoat. Ivanov represented the old guard, the collective memory of the regime. By removing him, Putin is isolating himself further. He is effectively saying, I trust no one, not even the men who have stood by me for 40 years. This signals a dangerous shift in Putin's psychology. He is moving from an authoritarian leader, relying on a circle of peers, to a paranoid dictator, relying only on sycophants who tell him what he wants to hear. When the Tsar starts eating his own court, the end of the dynasty is usually near. Ivanov's removal is not an isolated incident. It is part of a systemic purge that is tearing the Ministry of Defense apart. Reports from the Carnegie Endowment and the Kiev Independent confirm that the Shoigu Clan is being systematically dismantled. Another general from Shoigu's team has just been sentenced to prison for bribery. Bribery in Russia is a convenient charge. Every official takes bribes. It is the grease that makes the machine work. If you are arrested for bribery, it's not because you stole money. It's because you lost your political protection. The Ministry of Defense has become a kill zone. Generals are being arrested in their pajamas. They are being dragged out of their offices in handcuffs. Putin is purging the military leadership in the middle of a war. Why? Because he fears a coup. History teaches us that the only force capable of overthrowing a dictator is the army. By keeping the generals in a state of terror, by arresting them one by one, Putin ensures they are too busy trying to save their own skins to plot against him. But this strategy has a fatal flaw. A terrified army does not fight well. A general who is afraid of Moscow will not take risks on the battlefield in Ukraine. He will lie. He will fake reports. He will say, "Yes, sir," while the front collapses. This purge is destroying the competence of the Russian military machine from the top down. But there is another layer to this purge. It's not just about loyalty, it's about money. The Russian Ministry of Defense is not just a military organization, it is the biggest laundromat in the world. For a decade, the Shoigu Clan treated the defense budget as their personal piggy bank. Construction contracts for barracks that were never built. Orders for uniforms that never existed. The scale of the theft is so massive that even Putin, who built this kleptocracy, is in shock. With the economy collapsing and oil revenues shrinking, the Kremlin can no longer afford to let the generals steal 30% of the budget. They need that money for shells. They need it for drones. The arrests we are seeing now are a desperate attempt by the Kremlin to perform a hostile audit. They are shaking the generals upside down to see how much money falls out of their pockets. But it is too little, too late. The money is already in Dubai. The villas are already bought in France. Arresting a general now doesn't produce a single tank for the front line. It only shows the rest of the elite that the feeding trough is closed. And when you take the food away from the wolves, they start looking at the alpha wolf with hungry eyes. While the generals are being arrested in their offices, the streets of Moscow have turned into a battlefield. The Kiev Post has reported a shocking shootout in the Russian capital. The details are terrifying. Armed men, allegedly former Wagner mercenaries and convict soldiers who survived the meat grinder of Bakhmut and Avdiivka, engaged in a firefight with law enforcement. We warned about this. For 2 years we said, what happens when you give automatic weapons to murderers and rapists, teach them how to kill, traumatize them in the trenches, and then release them back into society? Now we have the answer. These men believe they are heroes. They have atoned with blood. They do not respect the police. They do not respect the law. They only respect force. The incident in Moscow involves kidnapping, murder, and open combat. This is the Wagnerization of Russian society. The state has lost its monopoly on violence. Imagine being a Muscovite today. You are afraid of the secret police taking you away for a social media post. But you are also afraid of the hero of Russia living next door, a convicted murderer who brought a grenade home from the front as a souvenir. Putin created a monster to save his regime in Ukraine. Now that monster has come home, and it is hungry. The streets are no longer safe, and the police are outgunned by the very veterans the state created. The shootout in Moscow is just the tip of the iceberg. We are looking at a social catastrophe that will haunt Russia for a generation. Hundreds of thousands of men are returning from the front. They have seen hell. They have killed. They have watched their friends die in drone strikes. And now they are returning to a society that wants to pretend the war doesn't exist. Russia has virtually no psychological support system for veterans. No therapy. No reintegration programs. Just a pat on the back and a bottle of vodka. These men are bringing the trench law to the cities. In the trench, if you have a problem, you solve it with a gun. Now they are solving domestic disputes, traffic arguments, and business deals with the same method. The police are terrified of them. A policeman with a baton is no match for a stormtrooper who survived Bakhmut. We are seeing reports of police officers refusing to respond to calls involving veterans. This creates a vacuum of law and order. In this vacuum, the warlords rise. The shootout in Moscow proves that the heroes of the special military operation are becoming the new organized crime syndicates of the 2000s and 20s. The 90s are back, but this time, the gangsters have military-grade experience. As if the chaos wasn't enough, the repression machine has turned 180 degrees. It is no longer just targeting liberals or anti-war activists. It is targeting the loyal opposition. The Moscow Times reports that police raids have been carried out against members of the Russian Communist Party in the Altai region. Why target the communists? They have supported the war. They have voted for every insane law Putin proposed. Because in a totalitarian system, support is not enough. You must be invisible. The Communist Party is the only structure left in Russia that has a nationwide organization and a grassroots base. As the economy collapses and the price of eggs and heating skyrockets, the communists are the natural place for angry people to gather. Putin knows this. He is preemptively destroying any potential alternative center of power. But it gets even stranger. The Guardian reports that the repressive machinery is now targeting pro-war figures, the ultra-patriots, the Z-bloggers, the people who think Putin is not fighting hard enough. This is the classic Stage 3 of a dictatorship's collapse. Stage 1. Eliminate the opposition. Stage 2. Eliminate the traitors. Stage 3. Eliminate the fanatics who make you look weak. Putin is clearing the board. He wants total silence. But by arresting the patriots and the communists, he is destroying the very base of support he relies on. He is sawing off the branch he is sitting on. Historians watching these events are getting a chilling sense of déjà vu. We have seen this movie before. The year was 1937, the Great Terror. Joseph Stalin, fearing a conspiracy, decapitated the Red Army. He executed his best marshals like Tukhachevsky right before World War II. He chose loyalty over competence, and when the Nazis invaded in 1941, the Soviet army collapsed because there was no one left to lead it. Vladimir Putin is repeating the exact same mistake, but he is doing it during a war, not before it. By purging the disloyal but competent officers and replacing them with loyal but incompetent yes-men, he is ensuring a military disaster. The generals currently sitting in the command centers are paralyzed by fear. They are not thinking about how to defeat the Ukrainians. They are thinking about how to avoid being the next one dragged to Lefortovo prison. A paralyzed command structure is a death sentence for the soldiers on the front. Decisions will not be made. Reserves will not be moved. Truth will not be told to the president. Putin is building a machine that can only do one thing: lie to him until the very moment of total collapse. So let's step back and look at the picture we have painted today. A GRU general is dead in the street. The former Minister of Defense is fired. The current generals are in prison. Wagner convicts are shooting at police. And the secret police are raiding the homes of communists. This is not a stable country. This is a pressure cooker that has been welded shut and put on a high flame. Vladimir Putin has built a system where everyone is an enemy. The liberals are enemies. The West is an enemy. Now his old friends are enemies. His generals are enemies. Even his soldiers are a threat. He is isolating himself in a bunker of paranoia. But here is the danger for the world. A weak, paranoid leader is more dangerous than a strong, confident one. When a leader feels the walls closing in, when he feels the knives in the dark, he creates external crises to justify internal terror. The chaos in Moscow will likely lead to more brutality in Ukraine, or perhaps a new provocation against NATO, just to distract from the blood on the snow in the capital. The Night of the Long Knives has begun in Russia, and usually these nights do not end until the sun rises on a new regime, or a ruined country. We will continue to monitor the body count in Moscow, because right now, the most dangerous place for a Russian general is not the trench in Avdiivka, but but his own apartment in the capital. What do you think? Is this the beginning of the end for the Putin regime? Or is it just another bloody chapter in Russian history? Let me know in the comments. I read them all. I'm Charlie. Stay safe and watch your back.